Battletoads 2020 is a game that unfortunately has a very negative stigma surrounding it, and I have to say, when it first came out, the controversy intrigued me. Why were so many fans upset with this game? We had waited since 1994 for the release of a new Battletoads game, and this game certainly was not met with the same praise and enthusiasm for it as the past classics. I kept hearing about the new art style being bad, but I was looking at the cutscenes and the in-game graphics, and I was very taken with the hand-drawn art style. If you guys watch my past videos on the Shantae series, you would know that this art style just does it for me in so many ways. This is definitely one of my favorite art styles in gaming, to be quite honest. The other thing was the redesign of the Dark Queen, and yes, I do agree with the general consensus that this was a bit of a woke decision, with Rare fearing for their collective careers of cancel culture if the Dark Queen of old reappeared in her beyond sexy appearance. We would have had angry woke SJWs stomping their feet in total outrage at the mere glimpse of supposed objectivism. Because how dare a woman have the right to be sexy and attractive in a video game? Outrageous indeed. I've even seen some people even go so far as to complain about the controls, but that is not as prevalent as the art style and Dark Queen complaints by far. Those are the two prevailing points that fans have voiced their displeasure with the most by far. Critical reception was mostly positive, and the Metacritic score is quite an admirable score of 72, but as I always say, fuck the critics. We the gamers decide what is a good or bad game, not some stuck-up pretentious journos with agendas, and the user score sits at a 6.5. So I really wanted to play it, but I waited for a prize drop. And when it didn't come, and it's 2022, I decided it was time to bite the bullet and take the plunge and spend $20 on Battletoads 2020. So now that I have played through the game to completion, what did I think? Well, I have to say that I like this game, and I like it quite a bit. Let me just say that the complaints of this game are overblown and exaggerated to say the least, but using these words would indicate that there are problems that are being falsely accentuated by others, and it's actually to the point that I would say the claims are invalid, especially when it comes to the controls. The graphics are subjective, and if this art style isn't for you, well, that is indeed an opinion I can respect. But I think it represents the attitude of the past Battletoads games greatly. They're somewhat comedic, and that makes sense given that the games always had a sense of humor to a certain extent. But the art style still maintains the look of the original designs of the Toads. Although the Dark Queen's new attire is less attractive overall in its look, she doesn't look bad, and it's not like they gave her a woke appearance, but have simply covered her up and made her a bit more cartoonish. And in a way, it fits more in line with the otherwise overall cartoony universe that the Battletoads have always existed within. The game's story begins with the three protagonists, Rash, Pimple, and Zitz, living a life of fame and glory as famous superheroes. You'll begin the game beating up multiple baddies consisting of rats and pigs, which will be very familiar to fans of the old games. Weirdly enough, in the opening cutscene, we are told that Zitz is the leader of the group. I actually kind of thought Rash was the leader of the group. I'm not sure if this was always the intended role for Zitz from the original game onward, or this is something that they wrote into this specific story. Right from the start, I love the voiceovers, and the right voice actors were picked to play these characters. This is how I would expect them to sound, and everyone is on point with their vocal performances. You'll find that you can switch to any Toad on the fly, and should one of them lose all their health, he will automatically be swapped out for another Toad. But the Toad who you lost can soon be recovered after a waiting period. Zitz is the fastest by far and can easily rack up combos with air juggles. Pimple is the powerhouse and can easily deal out the most damage, but is slow as molasses. And Rash is the most well-rounded of the three. There's plenty of attacks to be had, and the Toads once again are able to morph their bodies into different objects, with Pimple taking the cake for the weirdest transformations being that of an Egyptian tomb and a locomotive. Rash can still increase the size of his foot and can now transform his arms into a fish or a rubber chicken. Zitz can whip out a mechanical bull and even turn his arms into jet engines. There's tons of variety with the combat, the controls feel tight and always responsive, which makes me think that the complaints about the controls were simply made up by those fans who were extremely upset with the art style and Dark Queen decisions, and wanted to add more fuel to the fire so they could just have a black and white argument settled by saying the controls suck, which is a nail in the coffin for a game's quality when it has bad controls. But it doesn't. And to those who played it and think that, seriously comment below and tell me how that is, because I've played games with bad controls, and to me you simply haven't played many games if you think this is the least bit bad. Anyway, after you topple Porkshank, who is an enemy very similar to the Psycho Pigs that are found in the original Battletoads game, it will be revealed that the Toads have been locked away and living in a virtual reality simulator bunker for 26 years, and are told that no one knows who they are, and they're certainly not famous. So they have no choice but to get regular jobs like everyone else, and the game actually lets you play out these jobs in the game's first mini-game in rather hilarious fashion. This may be the first game in history that lets you be a masseuse and an email attacher. However, Rash soon grows tired of being a part of the mundane workforce and seeks adventure and, most importantly, fame, and figures their ticket to the top is by facing off against the Dark Queen once more, which leads to the Toads once again commandeering hover bikes and proceeding to venture through an all-new version of the Turbo Tunnel. But it's nowhere near as challenging as the original. You'll soon reach an abandoned, creepy-ass amusement park and find some strange, malformed, and irregular creatures inhabiting it. You'll then make your way through an underground complex, hacking your way into computer systems to open security doors, and these mini-games are actually rather intuitive and make you think and challenge your sense of timing. And any long-time Battletoads fan knows that timing is half the game when it comes to those games of old. Soon you'll come upon the Dark Queen, who is being held prisoner by the Topians, who are a pair of godlike villains that have stripped the Queen of her powers and imprisoned her 26 years ago. Pimple surmises that since they've been stuck in the bunker for 26 years, it must have been the Topians who imprisoned them too. So after a game of Toad Shambo to decide if they should take the Queen up on her offer to team up, is interrupted by the massive monster who has been guarding the Queen. And it's time to battle it out. Though not a particularly difficult fight, I do like how you don't get to see the full monster during the fight, only part of him, as you attack his many eyes to get at the main eye by using your tongue to pull it towards you from the background. A very cool visual. By the way, that game of Toad Shambo is just hilarious, and it's basically one of the many mini games that you participate in. but this one is merely for laughs, and it's a nonsensical version of rock, paper, scissors. And how can you not laugh when instead of using the regular signs, they're using toasters and hand puppets? This game just has a tremendous sense of humor while establishing the camaraderie between the Toads. There's another really great running joke with alluding to the fact if the Toads are indeed brothers or not. I guess we all just assumed.
This dynamic is toxic. I can't be a part of this friendship anymore!
Aren't you brothers?
We never talk about it.
So from here, the Toads end up saving the Queen, and they sort of begrudgingly just end up helping each other anyway by letting her tag along, but not before telling the Toads that they can suck her butt in this hilarious tirade of hers.
Suck my frigging butt, you backstabbing punks! Chug my dump truck, you stinky wimps! Beep beep, garbage butt backing up!
I already like this more humorous styling of the Queen, despite its vast unpopularity with much of the fandom. She just really seemed to pop and fit in with the proceedings. The Topians are revealed as two very strange looking benevolent beings and extremely flamboyant. And they catch wind of the Battletoads and the Queen's doings through radio chatter and decide to have them killed. The Queen takes you to a planet where a former cohort of hers, Jeffrey, is staying and is negotiating a peace treaty between two warring tribes, lumberjacks and gymnasts, and hopes to do it by participating in competitions where he hopes to obtain both of the tribes' medallions of respect. But thanks to bumbling on the Toad's part, Jeffrey is knocked unconscious and the plan doesn't go according to plan. And the Toads will find themselves fighting once more against the locals, as well as invading Topian henchmen. After battling your way to the end of the stage, you'll face off against the appropriately named boss Axley, and somehow fool him into thinking that he's facing off against Jeffrey. And once you eliminate the oversized lumberjack, you will earn a medallion and then participate in a number of Olympic-style minigames, and, yeah, these are okay. This is a bit of a confusing inclusion, because I get the fact that these are supposed to be Olympic-style competition games, but it's rather lame and not really my idea of fun. I mean, the controls and everything are interesting and responsive, but having to rotate zits into spaces on this stone is just odd. It's not funny, nor is it interestingly put together like the hacking in the amusement park. Then you've got this game where you gotta bring a ball to the goal with your bare hands, and use both control sticks to move your arms around, and it reminded me a lot of Puppy Love from Earthworm Jim 2. There's also this bust-a-move style bow and arrow game as you shoot at targets, but man, I can't help but feel that after bashing people's skulls in, this is a bit too dull. I think this is a point where the variety gets a bit too varied, but after winning the games, you'll now have both medallions of respect and thus earned the respect of the two tribes, bringing them together. But when they find out that it's all a ruse and the real Jeffrey is unconscious, they'll grow angered and go after you. But you quickly make your escape on Jeffrey, riding him like a sled. And this is when the game picks up again and becomes really fun, as you navigate Jeff's body along dozens of ramps, switching between 4 different forms to match the terrain, including your regular form, ice, sponge, and carpet. It's a really wacky idea, but when the different ramps start changing in quick succession, a greater challenge factor comes into play, and it becomes a really cool, fast-paced, and interestingly designed stage. Plus, the stage is accompanied by a phenomenal rendition of the Turbo Tunnel theme from the original Battletoads game. And let's detour here for a moment to talk about the fucking banger of a soundtrack we have here by composer David Housden. From heavy riffs to soothing or eerily atmospheric pieces, there's so much to love. David Wise would certainly be proud of these catchy tunes and the fact that every track fits what's on screen quite nicely. And I'm actually quite shocked that David Wise couldn't make it for this game, thus making it the only Battletoads game without Wise on board. Once you escape with help from the Queen, a disagreement between the Toads sees Pimple leaving, not seeing the point to carrying on the fight, and ends up joining a group of peaceful cultists, while Rash, Zitz, and the Queen battle it out in space. From here you switch between two gameplay styles, the space shooter and the platforming puzzle sections with Owith, one of the Queen's henchmen. The funny thing, I can't understand why you can't play these stages as Pimple, since it's supposed to be about him without quitting the game and selecting him. And you can even pick Bratty, the Queen's other cohort. There's something rather calming about the great music on these stages. Plus, to fit in with the theme of the planet, there is no fighting allowed, and this is supposed to be a journey of inner peace to the top of the summit. I can totally get down with the idea of there just being platforming only stages with traps and pitfalls, so I'm perfectly fine with this set of 3 stages. Now, these space shooter stages can be challenging to say the least, and they're well done, but I was stunned that it actually spans 3 stages. Like, one would have been good enough, but it was jarring just how long this went on. It's a little hard to complain on this one because the shooter stages are extremely well designed and it's tricky to maneuver around the enemy ship's patterns and figure out which should be taken out first, especially due to your limited health. But I couldn't help but think that 2 more stages of the space shooter could have been 2 more beat-em-up stages, because guess what? There are no more beat-em-up stages for the rest of the game. Yeah, it's a bit disappointing that it seems that the beat-em-up portions seem to be a bit skimped on in favor of this other style. But overall, I did enjoy it. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention the awesome music that plays during these space shooter stages. Soon, Pimple is rubbed the wrong way by his new friends and snaps, resulting in a series of quick-time events as Pimple punches and evades his friends turned foes. And Owith must destroy totem poles with a series of varying button presses within a time limit, and Bridie uses her camera phone to blind enemies with its flash, which is rather amusing. Meanwhile, the rest of the gang get overwhelmed in space, and man oh man, this minigame where you need to thwart a critical system failure and reboot the ship's systems is rather irritating, to put it mildly. There are several minigames within this minigame with a pretty strict time limit. Some of these are tricky, and there's basically no way you're getting through these on your first go. And there's several rounds of this, and each one gets harder, and the timer gets even more tight. This overstays its welcome because it's not really my idea of fun. It's challenging, yes, but not exactly entertaining at the same time. So after they get control of the ship once more, they meet up with Pimple and calm him down, but soon get arrested by the Topian police and are taken to Topian City. The Queen, Oweth, and Bratty are devoured by one of the Topians after mouthing off to them about wanting to kill them, but the Battletoads bow before them and are turned into stars, the very thing Rash longed for all along. The Queen devises a plan with others who have been devoured inside the Topian, and they start aggravating his stomach, and after squirting some juice into his quote-unquote cavity as an intestinal remedy, now the Queen must outrun the rushing juices of rectal disaster, and wouldn't you know it, it is a downright upgraded and remixed version of the rat race from the original Battletoads. The Queen must dash through mucus barriers and use her coat to parachute down the intestinal chasm with moving platforms that are ripped right out of the rat race stage, but this time with thorns instead of electricity. I really like this challenging stage, and thank God there's checkpoints, but this was a lot of fun and felt like a very genuine old school Battletoads level. And I really like the idea of controlling the Queen, and even though her abilities are limited, there's enough here to make it fun and unique from the rest of the game. Plus, doesn't this remind you of intestinal distress from Earthworm Jim? Oh yeah, this is definitely a cool stage, and the track that plays during this is a sweet as hell banger, more tremendous music. Once the Queen is finally spit up, the Topians order Rash to prove his loyalty and kill the Queen, but convinces the Topians that it's not fair to kill the Queen, who is without her powers and is tied up. Once the Queen regains her powers, Rash reveals that he has no intention of killing her, but just fooled the Topians into restoring her to her former glory, and you and her will fend off some of the Topian police as she fires off tornadoes, which can either hurt you or the officers. Nothing too terribly challenging, but then you will soon be whisked away to what the Topians describe as a nightmare, and wouldn't you know it, it is the very thing that caused so many gamers to have nightmares by playing the original Battletoads, the infamous Turbo Tunnel. This time around, the Topians generate their own barriers, hoping that you will crash into them, but overall, it's not that tough, especially after you have plenty of practice after playing through the first variation earlier on. After their plan fails, you will fight them both in the 2D beat-em-up style, and it's not a terribly tough fight to boot. You'll get some quick time events as the Toads and the Queen team up to put the finishing touches on the Topians, and when it's all said and done, the Queen is mad with power, but Rash, with some rash thinking, tells a reporter to interview the hero, the Queen, and gives her all the credit, which puts a damper on her plans once she learns she can now be the new ruler of the galaxy. Despite missing the sexy Dark Queen, I do really like this new iteration of the Queen, and there's no reason why she can't be sexy and funny, of course, but the character is still very cute and a rather charming one at that. So yeah, overall, I really dig this game, and the cutscenes and dialogue made for a really fun, entertaining experience that, quite frankly, I wouldn't mind seeing turned into an animated series. I really dug the art style, and I know that's not a popular opinion to have around these parts, but you know what? Fuck it. I like what I like. Sure, the game kind of goes in a whole other direction midway through, but I can't say that even the overly extended space shooter stages are not fun and done in a way that makes it worth playing. Would I have enjoyed a wholly beat-em-up experience? I think so, but some of the others, like the chase on the ramps, the peaceful planet platforming puzzle stages, and the Queen's gut reaction stage were very much in the realm of variety of what I would expect from a Battletoads game. The system failure and Olympic Games puzzles could have been scrapped in favor of more traditional beat-em-up content, and I think this game would have been even better for it. Plus, the overall package does feel rather short, especially since not everything is a full-length level. So I do wish we had even more content here. But a long game does not a good game make, my friends. But I still really enjoy Battletoads 2020 and playing it despite all the hate. And this once again proves why I am so happy that I don't listen to reviews and instead judge games for myself. And I'm glad that mindset I've adopted in my adult years has paid off time and time again, especially here. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Have you played Battletoads 2020? Do you hate it? Do you agree with the general consensus of fans? Or do you agree with me and think that the game is overshadowed by that hate and is actually a really good game? Please subscribe if you haven't already and click the bells to get auto notifications when I post on my new videos. And hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and hit the dislike button if you fucking hated it. And I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support, and thanks again guys. I will see you next time.